Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody this morning. You glad to be here today? Good. We start a new series today called Being Human. How many, just curious, how many humans do we have? This series is specifically for you. So we're talking about being human. You know, I think that in Christian community, we focused so many years and so much on how bad we are and how much we need God and we need His grace because we're so wretched. And, there's a lot of truth in that. But I think somewhere along the way, we have forgotten how special it is to be human. We are the highest and greatest creation of God. And we're going to talk about that today. And today's message is titled, Created for Greatness. Created for Greatness. Did you know that you're created for greatness? You are not just an accident. You are not just a knot on a log. You are created for purpose. You are created for great things. God has created you for greatness. And the first thing I want to talk about this morning is the fact that you are a miracle. Just the fact that you are here is a miracle. This whole topic fascinates me, and I talk about it with my oldest son. We talk about it a lot, but the chances of being born. The chances of being born. When you factor in all of the possibilities, all of the generations. So you have two parents, right? You have 4 grandparents. You have 8 great-grandparents. You have 16 great-great-grandparents. And if you're smart enough to follow it this far, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it doubles every generation back, right? And you think about the fact that each time 2 of your ancestors, male and female, got together, all the possibilities of them getting together at the right time to be together, mates together, and how many opportunities there were. But those 2 people got together at just the right time. And then whenever you were conceived, all of the millions of possibilities that were available whenever those 2 people came together. And those are just 2 of your thousands of ancestors that you have. Are you amazed by that? I am. That amazes me. So I thought, well, I'm gonna look, and every so often I go and look on the internet and see what the numbers are, what people have calculated. Of course, nobody knows exactly, but the one that's out there and is most prominent is this one. The chances of you being born is 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion. But I think it's even less than that. I think it's even less than that. Here's another number. Get this. Some scientists think that it's even less than that. It's 1 in 10 with 2.62 million zeros. The fact that you're even here is a miracle. I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible. You are impossible. It's impossible. I mean, really. I mean, would you buy a ticket for a lottery where your chances were 1 in 10 with 2.62 million zeros? It's impossible. So the fact that you're here is an amazing miracle. And so what I want to talk to you about this morning is I want you to embrace your humanity. The fact that God has created you, the fact that He has created you with purpose and meaning, it is a beautiful thing. It's an exceptional thing, and you are here for a purpose. Some of you might be thinking, well, if we're God's highest and greatest creation, what about the angels? Anybody thinking about that? What about the angels? The angels are higher than us, right? Well, let me just share. I want to share one scripture with you, and maybe I'll share a couple from memory. But this is in Revelation. This is Jesus. He says, "To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat down with my Father on his throne." That's pretty high. The throne is pretty high, right? There are also a couple of other scriptures. In Romans 8, talks about the fact that we are heirs of God. We are joint heirs with Christ. Heirs of God, joint heirs with Christ. And then Paul says, one place he says, "Do you not know that you will judge angels?" He just throws that out there. He's just like a little side note. Do you not know that you will judge angels? No, I didn't know that. But we are created to be something amazing. I want to share with you a quote. Are you ready for a C.S. Lewis quote? I haven't done one in a while. You ready for one? I love C.S. Lewis. You know I love C.S. Lewis. So this is a C.S. Lewis quote. It's kind of long, so bear with me. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods, with a little g, gods and goddesses. To remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship, or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long, we are in some degree, think about this, all day long, we are in some degree helping each other to one or the other of these destinations. It is in the light of this, it is in the light of these overwhelming possibilities. It is with the awe and the circumspection proper to them that we should conduct all of our dealings with one another. We should take this into consideration when we're dealing with each other. All friendships, all loves, all play, all politics. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are all mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. I like that. The life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. C.S. Lewis. That's a good quote. We are valuable. We are valuable. It is such an honor and such a blessing to be human. Did you know that? Sometimes we think we are worthless because of our imperfections. And I think that's preached a lot in church. And I think that a lot of Christians are down on themselves because of their imperfections. But God is working his process in your life. If you're a committed Christian, if you're following him, he is working his process in your life. And you know what that process is doing? It's purifying you. It's making you pure. It's making you holy. It's making you righteous, not just in some symbolic idea, but it's really and truly making you better. He is molding you, and he is making you, he is transforming you into the image of Christ, and he is taking your imperfections and he is transforming them into perfection. That's good stuff. You know, it's when we look at ourselves and we look at our imperfections and we think, well, I'm worthless because of my imperfections. It's kind of like a gold prospector who is panning for gold. He's got a pan full of gold dust, and he looks at it and he says, this is worthless. This is worthless because it's not molded and it's not made into some beautiful piece of jewelry yet. It's the raw material. Let me tell you what you are made of. You are made of the raw material of God. I mean, you are made of the stuff of God. Think about it. Think about it. You have a mind that you can think and reason with. You have a soul that is immortal. Think about that. We have emotions. We can communicate with each other. God created us in His image. We have the stuff of God in us. And God created us with the stuff of God. I remember when I went to buy Lene's engagement ring. She would have been horrified if she knew that I was buying her engagement ring. Because she didn't think that we were even close to that point in our relationship. But I went to this jeweler, and he was an artist, a real artist. And I remember going to him, and he showed me different settings that didn't have any stones in them that he had made. And then he showed me the stones, and we picked out the stones. But the settings had already been made. And the diamonds had already been cut. So they had been in process already. And I remember going through the diamonds and looking through his glass to look at the clarity of the stone. And the clearer and cleaner and purer the stone is, the more valuable it is, right? But that's not how these ingredients started. They both came out of the ground as rocks, right? If I had gone to Lene with a little Ziploc bag with some gold dust and a rock in there that didn't even resemble a ring, she would say, what is that? What is that? You wouldn't think of doing that, right? But God has a process of refining and with the gold, He heats it up. You ever been heated up? Has God ever heated you up? He has to heat us up sometimes to change us, and He has to put us in situations that are uncomfortable sometimes to change us. And then the diamond has to be cut. Has God ever hammered around on you at all? Anybody? You know what that's like to be hammered on? And what comes out is so beautiful. And do you know why it's so beautiful, so sparkly, so blingy? You know why? Because it's the right stuff. It's the right stuff. And you have the right stuff. You have the right stuff. We weren't doing such a good job at being human, so Jesus came to show us how to be human. We just weren't doing it right. Now, I know that's not correct grammar, but that's the way I say it. All right? We weren't doing a very good job at being human. Jesus came to show us, I've said this 1,000 times, He came to show us simultaneously who God is and at the same time who we are. And so Jesus came to show us what it's like to be human. And I took a story. This is kind of an overview of the series today. And I took a story of Jesus out of the New Testament, and I want to relate that story to you just so we can see how Jesus showed us some ways that we can be human. And it's the story of Lazarus. Now, for you type A people, I will be skipping some verses, okay? I just have to say that. So let's get into it. It's John 11. That's where it starts. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, brothers and sisters. He loved them. He loved them so, because He loved them, so when He heard that Lazarus was sick, He stayed where He was 2 more days, and then He said to His disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." So this has always been a little confusing to me. He loved them so much that He let Lazarus die. He loved him so much that when He heard that Lazarus was sick, He did nothing. So he said after Lazarus had died, he said to his disciples, let us go to Judea. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. That's what we would all say, right? If he's sleeping, that's a good sign. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there to heal him. I'm glad for your sake, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. And Thomas, good old doubting Thomas, sarcastically, he says to the rest of the disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. And let me just explain this. So Jesus had been to Jerusalem, and last time he was in town, they had tried to stone him. And so the disciples were worried that they were going to try to kill Jesus. And so Thomas sarcastically says, let us go with him so we may die with him also. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. You probably heard this before, but they had this understanding in their culture that after 4 days, someone was absolutely dead. Like they weren't coming back after 4 days. And we skip it here, but Mary says, he's been in the tomb 4 days. He stinks. Yep, he was dead. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And this is amazing. She says, but I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. Wow. So she is producing her faith. And she is saying to Jesus, she's saying, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask God, he will give you. So she's asking him to raise her brother from the dead. Whenever I go to do a funeral, I've sung at way more funerals than I've ever done the eulogy on, but maybe I have been to participated in hundreds of funerals. I've never walked into a funeral home and someone said, Rob, I know that even now, whatever you ask God, he will do for you. That's not something that you hear. Usually when somebody dies, that's it. But Martha was saying, even now, I know, even now, whatever you ask God, he will give you. So the first principle that I want to talk about today is the fact that there is an even now. Some of you here in this room, and some of you that are watching online, you are at a place like this where it feels like there's no hope. It feels like there's nothing left to be done. Maybe you've messed things up so terribly that you think there's no coming back from this. Maybe you've messed up so many times. Maybe that's it. Maybe you've messed up so many times you just think there's not another forgiveness in God for me. There's not another place of redemption for me. I'm not going to be able to make it. And you might think that you are at the end of the line, at the end of your rope, but I want you to know that there is an even now for you. Maybe your thinking and your belief in God is such that you don't believe that in this lifetime God can do much with the material that he created you with. Maybe that's you, and you just think, well, I don't think I can be any more than I am now. Maybe it's a relationship. I know of a couple of relationships right now that are on the rocks. Really doesn't seem like there's much hope for the relationship, but I want you to know that there is an even now in God. There is an even now for the people of God. Even now, God will do what we ask. So Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Isn't that what we think? I mean, that's Christianity in the United States today. God's going to do it, but he's going to do it later. He's not going to do it now. I don't understand now, but I'll understand when I get to heaven. I'm a sinful person now, but when I get to heaven, I'm not going to sin anymore. I'm addicted now, but one day I won't be addicted anymore. I have bad relationships now, but one day I'll be in heaven with all the perfect people, like myself, and it'll all be better when I get to heaven. It's always putting things off. And what I have come to tell you, and the reason that this church is here, is I want people to know that what God is doing in your life, he is doing right now. He is a right now God. He is a present tense God. Jesus is the great I am, not the great I was, not the great I will be, but the great I am. Before Abraham was, Jesus said, I am. Jesus is a right now Savior. It's true. It's true. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever, I love the music that just comes on sometimes whenever I'm on a roll. Tell the Spirit is with me. Did you hear the angels? Did you hear that? All right. So this is what he's saying. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. So he's talking about the people who came before him, before his death and resurrection, before salvation. Those people, if they believed in him, he's saying, the one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? And he's asking her, do you believe this? So the next thing that I want to just drive home today is in everything, almost everything in our lives, everything that God needs to do in our lives, we need to pursue that life of Christ today. We need to pursue it today. Whatever it is that God needs to do in your life, pursue it now. You will be amazed at what God will do if you just put yourself into his hands. He can do it. He is a master at taking the raw material and making it into something beautiful. So pursue the life of Christ today. Yes, Lord, she replied, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and take note here, when Jesus saw Mary weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. This is what moved him. This is what moved him. He saw them weeping. You know, Jesus could have come in with the attitude of, hey, everybody, stop crying. I'm here. I'm going to fix it all. In just a few minutes, all you people that are crying, you're going to be jumping up and down and laughing and cheering and rejoicing because Lazarus is going to come back to life. He could have said that. He could have had that attitude. But Scripture says, weep with those who weep. See, to be human, you feel, you allow yourself to feel what other people feel. So, he said, where have you laid him? Come and see, Lord, they replied. And Jesus wept. The Jews are always getting it wrong. The Jews said, see how he loved him. Jesus was not weeping over Lazarus, I don't believe. But he was moved because they were so sorrowful and heartbroken, and he was moved with that. So, empathy is essential. If you're going to be human, you need to be able to empathize. And I don't mean sympathize. I mean empathize. And empathize means you feel what the other person is feeling. Now, I'll just admit something to you today, that I have a hard time going on hospital visits. So if you are in the hospital, good luck. Okay? Good luck. That's not true. If you're in the hospital, I will come to see you. I will come to see you. And if you're in intensive care, I will still come to see you. But whenever I go into an intensive care room, I have fainted. I have fainted once, but it's because I have this empathy, and it doesn't matter if you come up to me on a Sunday and your leg is in a cast, and you begin to tell me how you terribly broke your leg that week and how much it hurts. My leg will start hurting. I'm just saying it's a real thing. I'm empathetic, and Lene says I'm pathetic, but I am empathetic. And whenever I go into an intensive care room and there are tubes coming out of people, it is really hard. Like if somebody's on a breathing machine, my breathing kind of starts getting in sync with their breathing. I'm just telling you, it's bad. I start feeling the tube in my throat, and I start feeling whatever is going on with them. And so that's what empathy is. So I feel the physical things. My wife feels the emotional things. If she is around someone who feels a certain emotion, she's going to empathize with them. She feels that emotion. And this is exactly what Jesus was feeling. He was feeling their emotion. Allow yourself to feel. You are human. You have emotions. You have the ability to connect with other people emotionally. This is the stuff of God. And we have the ability to communicate with each other. We have the ability to pray for each other. We have the ability to feel for each other. And this is what Jesus was doing. He was feeling what they were feeling. And then, once more, Jesus, deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. This is the best part, where he takes away the stone. He says, take away the stone. They take away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. So I read this week, and I thought, gosh, there's something in there that stirs me up. There's something here. What is it? And I read it over and over again. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. Now, some of you have probably heard me say this before, but I don't think Jesus prayed out loud very often. And the reason I don't think he prayed out loud very often is because this is one of the reasons, but the disciples asked him, teach us how to pray. If they had been around Jesus for 2 or 3 days and every time Jesus prayed, he prayed out loud, they wouldn't be asking him how to pray. They would be experts in knowing how to pray because they would be listening to Jesus, the Son of God, praying to the Father. But they asked him, Lord, teach us how to pray. And then there's this. I'm saying this out loud, Father. I'm saying this out loud so that people can hear and people can believe. But that's not the thing that really struck me about this passage this week. It was this, that Jesus knew that the Father always hears him. The Father always hears him. He knows that. Every time he goes to the Father hears him. And he did not take it for granted. Every time he had ever gone to the Father heard him. But he didn't take it for granted. You know what he does? He thanks the Father. Father, I thank you. I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always do, but I just have to thank you. I have to thank you. To be human, the way God meant for us to be human, we must have gratitude, and gratitude fuels our greatness. You will not be great in the kingdom without gratitude. You will not be great in the kingdom without empathy. You will not be great in the kingdom unless you forgive. You will not be great. There's so many attributes of Christ that makes us more human than we are now. And gratitude fuels our greatness. If anyone would be great in the kingdom, let him serve. Gratitude, being thankful. And when he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. This is the way they wrapped the dead bodies. This is the way they wrapped Jesus' body whenever he died on the cross. They wrapped them like a mummy. So they wrapped them in these strips of linen that they impregnated with this salve or this ointment. And they wrapped the whole body in this. And then they wrapped the face. So the whole body is covered. And so when Lazarus appears in the entrance of the tomb, and I'm just wondering how he got there. You know, I mean, it had to be something like that, because when he appears in the entrance, he's wrapped head to toe. And Jesus says, unwrap him and let him go. Unwrap his face. Unwrap his eyes. Unwrap his ears. Unwrap his mouth. Unwrap his body. Unwrap his limbs. Let him go. Unwrap him and let him go. And this is what I want to leave you with today. Jesus wants to set you free. He wants you. If you've never heard his voice before, he wants you to hear him. If you've never seen what he is and what he is doing in this world, he wants you to see it. If you've never spoken the words of God, he wants you to be free to speak the words of God. If you've never felt the way he feels, he wants you to be able to feel. He wants to set you free. I shared this with you a few Sundays ago, and it's so true that up until Christmas this year, this last Christmas, I always had a little voice in my head. It was always saying, who do you think you are? And it always got my attention. And you know, who do you think you are, Rob? Who do you think you are? For 15 years, I led worship at the church before we started this one. And even before that, decades. This has gone on for decades. there was always this little voice saying, who do you think you are, Rob, to stand up in front of these people and lead them into the presence of God? Who are you? And then we started this church, and it changed a little bit. Not much, but who do you think you are, Rob, to stand up and tell people how to live for Christ? Who do you think you are? You're not qualified. You haven't even been to seminary. Who do you think you are? But this last Christmas, I got sick. You all have heard me whine and complain about getting sick over Christmas. And I thought that God was going to speak to me. And after I got well and went back to my daily routine, I realized that the voice was gone. That after all those years, all those decades of hearing that voice in my head, the one that had that condemnation spirit, you know what I mean? That was gone. I mean, look, it impedes you a little bit when you stand up to talk about Jesus and you've got this voice saying, who do you think you are? You're not qualified. And you have a little bit of guilt and a little bit of shame over all the things in your life you've ever done and said and thought. And it keeps you from being all that you can be whenever you're trying to minister through that muck in your soul. But God set me free. I didn't feel it when He set me free. I don't know exactly when it was. I just know that for 8 days I was in bed with a fever, and my family was gone, so I was by myself with God, and I just said, Lord, speak to me, Lord, speak to me, Lord, speak to me. And when God speaks, creation happens. When God speaks, He speaks things into existence, and He spoke my freedom into existence. And that's what I want you to know, that God wants you to be free. He wants to make you free. And I'm going to tell you something. It feels good to be free. Have you noticed, I'm just asking, you don't have to agree, but have you noticed any change in me since the first of the year? Any of you noticed? Those who know me best have noticed. There's a secret, though. There is a secret to freedom. And this is what I want to leave you with. There is a secret to freedom, and this is it. Set everyone free. If you have the power to set somebody free, set them free. If they have committed sins against you, forgive them. Set them free. If there's anything that you hold, any kind of power or any kind of bondage that you hold over someone that you have the power to set free, set them free. If someone has borrowed, this is what Jesus said, Sermon on the Mount. If someone has borrowed something from you and they haven't returned that thing, stop being angry about that and set them free. Let it go. Jesus said, if someone asks you to borrow, loan it to them. If they don't return it, let it go. Set them free. If, this is a tough one now, someone borrows money from you, this is a tough one, and you have the power to set them free, set them free. This is the secret. This is the secret to having freedom yourself. Let it be your life's calling. Let it be your life's goal to set everyone free that you could possibly set free, and you will have freedom. And I believe that my freedom came because I preach this all the time. And I not only do I preach it, but I practice it. I set people free if I can. If someone comes to me and they are in bondage and they're bound with all kinds of sins and all kinds of mistakes and bad decisions and all that, I do my best to try to set them free. I do my best to give them the heart of Christ, the heart of forgiveness. And let me just say that before Jesus left this world, while he was on the cross, before he died, he said, Father, forgive them all. They don't know what they're doing. Forgive Pilate. Forgive, boy, this would be a hard one, but the chief priest, Caiaphas, forgive him. Forgive him. Forgive the temple guards who beat me up. Forgive the Roman soldiers who beat me with rods within an inch of my life. Forgive those who stripped me naked and paraded me through the streets. Forgive the ones who put the nails in my hands and feet, and forgive the one who stuck the sword in my side. Forgive them all. Forgive them. He set them all free. And when the thief who had been ridiculing him and mocking him earlier in the day said to him, Jesus, remember me whenever you come to into your kingdom. Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. He set them all free. He did not leave this world with anyone owing a debt to him. He set them free. So that's what I am saying to you. The secret is to set everyone free, that you have the power to set free. Set them free with your words. Set them free with your actions. Set them free. God will do the same for you. I want us to pray, and I just want to pray through a few of the things that we talked about today, and I want to see if God will put a finger on the part of your life where he wants to make a change. So let's bow our heads and let's pray.